wore the USA hat before Trump. So
That's right. Yeah, yours is well worn. And it's not a trucker hat.
All right, looks like we're live. It is 9 o'clock. We will go ahead and get started on time since pretty sure there's a lot of people who are tuning in to watch this. This is Uncivil Liberty. My name is Luke. We also are joined by Halston. Say hi, Halston.
Thank you.
And we also have Horace. Say hello, Horace.
Probably the other Luke Von Trapp.
Yeah, still comes up. Well, that's one of those things that one day we'll fix.
Yes.
I'm not sure what's going on with that. But thank you guys for joining us. We're also joined by the one and the only Ron Bishop, running as Libertarian write-in for the U.S. Senate, challenging Roy Moore and Doug Jones. Say hi, Ron.
how are y'all tonight?
Hey. All right, good deal. So, typical beginning of the show spiel. Check out our Facebook page if you haven't already. I'm not sure how you're watching it if you haven't, but definitely go in, like, and share that, please. We are on Twitter. I think we've been a little more active on Twitter. Halston, that's your domain. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, 17 tweets a minute.
17 tweets a minute. Damn,
Yeah,
boy.
man.
I'm sure your employer just loves to hear that.
Yeah.
Also check out uncivilliberty.com. That's our website. We actually put out some new content for a change. It's been kind of stagnant for about 3 weeks. We got some new content out there for your reading pleasure.
Yep.
And we're podcasting now. I've actually had a couple people reach out to us about our podcast, and they're like, "Hey, listen to your podcast. We like it. Cool."
Yes.
I'm like, "All right."
We're also on YouTube.
Yeah, go for it. Horace, this is your area.
Well, the YouTube and the podcast are my area.
Yeah.
The podcast is a standard podcast, RSS feed. If you have a podcasting app, it'll work with it. YouTube, please go click subscribe.
Okay. And are we on like other platforms too, like Stitcher? Working on that. I know there's a talk.
We're kind of on Stitcher, but Stitcher has some issues. No, I'm sorry. No. We are on Stitcher. I take that back.
We're on
we
Stitcher.
are on Stitcher.
They don't have issues. They don't have issues, people. They don't have issues.
My dyslexia keeps kicking in, and I keep seeing Spreaker and reading it as Stitcher.
Okay.
Because Spreaker we're working with, but they have some issues. I'm waiting to hear back from Apple on being on iTunes,
right.
And I'm in a holding pattern on Google Play till I get some more information.
Perfect. All right. So we're expanding, ladies and gentlemen. We are expanding as far as we possibly can throughout the entire podcasting universe. That is whatever it is. So all right. So we're gonna kind of roll into the show. Nice little segue. Kind of talk about a couple of things that have happened here recently in the news. I know one of the big things that kind of hit my feed is the shooting out in Texas. That was kind of I wouldn't say out of the blue, but definitely one that's again created divisive controversy between the get rid of the guns crowd and don't get rid of the guns crowd, and also the Rand Paul incident. That's one that I was definitely keeping my eye on a lot. Was kind of how that dumpster fire was taking effect. Definitely a lot of disinformation in regards to what the goings-ons with the whole Rand Paul thing. Did you guys follow this Rand Paul nonsense?
Got his ass whipped over a pumpkin.
Yeah. At first it was like a Bernie Sanders Antifa supporter just ran up and tackled him. Come to find out, it's an anesthesiologist who owns a patent on something, and they were actually just fighting over yard clippings. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not going to make any comments on anything until people figure it the fuck out. Oh, and by the way, speaking of figuring it out, this is not a safe for work program. This is not wholesome family.
No.
There will be some dirty words thrown in here and there. This is not Wonder Years. This is not Little House on the Prairie. This is Uncivil Liberty. If there are children present, I encourage you to listen to our podcast at a time where you're a little bit more alone. But going back to the whole Rand Paul thing, what was your take on it, guys?
On Rand Paul?
The whole Rand Paul ass beating that took place.
When you support Roy Moore, shit happens. You poke that bear, you get bit, buddy. That's just the way it. Nah, I mean it was a funny story. It kind of sucks that that anybody just gets their ass beat over some yard clippings or whatever. But I heard he was growing like a pumpkin patch or something like that. It was against the HOA.
Composting,
Yeah.
I think was one thing
composting.
too.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, that's just. It's a little ridiculous. Like I've had my ass whipped over some really good reasons, and that's not one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just.
No, my neighbors have not accosted me over my composting.
No.
Or even when I had a worm farm, my neighbors were like, whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, but you don't live in an HOA, do you?
Hell no. And there's a reason for that.
I had
Exactly.
I had before. I got fined like $150 for having I had an Explorer that was 4-wheel drive, and the 4-wheel drive locked up, and anyway, it doesn't matter. So I had to take one wheel off, and when I took
Now
the
it's
wheel
car
off,
talk with Halston.
Yeah, car talk with Halston. Yeah, so I took one wheel off, and the wheel rolled down the hill and like across into the neighbor's yard, and I was just like, "Fuck it, I'll get it later." And then 6 months later, I got a fine for $150.
Yes. It's always the fuck it, I'll get it later that actually ends a great story.
Yeah, that's my experience with HOAs.
Yeah. But no, I mean, as far as Rand, I mean, it was ridiculous. Because we take everything from a libertarian standpoint. My understanding, it was a blindside type thing. This was a distinct violation of the non-aggression principle, and and as far as the guy, from what I understand and reading, and I've got some friends who actually do fact checking and stuff. He does appear to be a longtime Democrat and an avowed socialist. So
that was Ron Bishop's lovely wife, by the way, that
yes.
we're waving
Yes,
at.
it was. My lovely wife, Renee.
Sorry, Horace, didn't mean to derail you. Please.
Sorry.
continue.
But no.
All right, you're done?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Ron, what's your
Yes.
insight on this?
I have no insight on it. No, yeah,
All right.
I'm good.
All right.
Fair enough.
And for those of you who don't know and who have been relatively blind to social media over the past, couple of weeks, I know that, Ron, you have a pretty strong campaign team that's been throwing your name as far and wide as possible. But to kind of give everyone who's out there listening and watching, Ron Bishop is the Libertarian write-in candidate in the U.S. Senate race that's being watched on a national level between Roy Moore, Doug Jones, and, of course, Ron's in the running as well. Why don't you, people who may not know you, who may not have been able to ever be exposed to you, why don't you kind of just take a few minutes and explain who you are, what you stand for, where you're from, the whole, building that rapport.
Yeah. I was born and raised in Alabama. I grew up in Eufaula. I live in Iredell, Alabama. I work for a wine import company as an IT administrator, and I, decided to do this because I was, sick and tired of the candidates that we keep getting thrown at us, and instead of just bitching about it, I decided I'm going to run for it.
Noble gesture.
Yeah. So you've been actually getting some airtime here recently. You've been on a couple of radio shows.
Yep, I was able to do the Joey Clark show down in Montgomery, and the Richard Dixon show here in Birmingham. I had a guy come up to me at the city council meeting here in Irondale last night. I was talking to one of our district reps, and he looked at me and said, "You're Ron Bishop." I said, "Yes." He says, "I heard you on the radio yesterday." So people are getting, hearing the message.
Nice.
That's important.
Yep, that's important.
Somebody did bring up on the Facebook chat, Luke the imposter.
Yeah.
Yes. I am Luke. As Horace somehow his computer has grabbed my account on this thing, so just
and will not let it go.
Will not. All right, so we're actually going to kind of do a round robin on questions, and then we'll finish up the extra time with just some witty banter and probably offensive comments. So Horace, I'll let you go first on this one. You got a question for Ron?
Yes, I do. As libertarians, one of the guiding principles is what we call the non-aggression principle. What does that mean to you?
That means that we have the best military on this planet that sits back, and if you mess with us, we will fuck you up.
Oh,
There we go.
That's one.
okay. All right.
There you go.
That's not mincing any words. No doubt about that. You will not hear that from Roy Moore. That's for sure.
That's right.
dropping them dirty words. I like it. Makes me want to vote for you twice. In the state of Alabama, you probably can get away with that.
That's right. That's right.
Austin, what you got?
So getting elected to a Senate seat, you're going to have to kind of dabble in foreign affairs a little bit, especially with maybe not so much hands-on as the executive branch would, but with all the shakeups that happened in the Middle East over the past couple of weeks, I mean, getting your take on that's a little bit much, but how do you feel about us nonstop, never-ending battle with countries with brown people? I mean, that's taken a little racially, but that's it's what it seems like. It seems like the next brown, or lighter than brown, right? Some tan people are doing something, and we have to mix it up with them. We always have our hands in the cookie jar over there. How do you feel about that?
Well, our generation is the Middle East. Our father's generation was Southeast Asia. When we poke our noses into situations that we honestly don't need to be involved in, we suffer. We were attacked in September 11th, and we went in and destroyed pretty much 2 countries after that, which is, I had no problem with that whatsoever. Like I said, you come mess with us, we're gonna mess you up. But we can't be the police of the world. Right now, all we're doing is trying to do nation building, and that doesn't work in an area that they don't want us in. If they don't want our help to promote freedom and liberty, then we can sit back, wait for them to do what they do.
Yep. Yeah, that sums it up for most of us. I think we're trying to play world police everywhere. And we're back in Southeast Asia, and now there's things coming up we've been in Africa since World War II, but now things are coming to the forefront of us being in Africa. Pretty soon we'll be in the outback in Australia, whipping on the Aborigines or whatever. So, World Police, Team America.
They got nukes.
No, we would do South America first. There's more oil there.
Yeah.
Now, Horace's lovely wife, Katie, did bring up the fact that, Ron, he says you sound a little gravelly.
A little gravelly?
Yeah, the auto quality. I don't know if that's maybe needs fresh batteries. I don't know.
Oh, no. It is sitting at 86%.
Okay. So just a heads up, the mic, I don't know if it's a bandwidth issue.
It's probably bandwidth. There's miles and miles of fiber optic all through my area.
And not one connection. That's what makes me mad, because Halston has an amazing internet connection. An amazing, like a T1 line running straight to his house. I live like 5 minutes down the road, and they're like, oh, no, we can't service you.
That's right.
And it's a lot faster than a T1.
Oh,
yeah, I'm throwing letters and numbers together here right now.
What, OC1?
T2000.
OC1, I believe?
53K.
Yeah,
OC1.
Yeah.
Sweet.
DR7 internet
DR7.
connection.
KFC.
Like
AT&T.
Yep.
Dude, I had a 2400 baud modem back in the day.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
You have to feed the little hamster in the box so it keeps running on the wheel.
You had to have dedication to get online back then. You had to sit there and wait.
Yeah, that was 8-bit porn.
Yeah.
8-bit porn. Wow. I'm liking you more and more. Oh my god, that's great. I guess it's my turn. I'll go ahead and go as far as the question, and if hopefully the audio quality will improve a little bit as we go. If not, we're gonna push through, because that's what we do. All right, so this is a question that I'm sure a lot of people really are interested in, but gun to the head. Which of these two teams would you root for if they were playing each other? The Cleveland Browns or the UT Vols?
Who?
Hmm?
I don't do professional sports.
Oh,
I'm one of those weird kind of college sports kind of guys. Sorry.
that's right. Okay, so I guess I'll move to a more serious one then, since that one was kind of wasted on you.
Sorry.
You wasted the good one on Ron.
Don't worry, I got plenty of them where that came from. It's just me sitting on the toilet in the morning. I come up with all kinds of crazy stuff. All right, so if you're elected, who would you begin associating caucusing with to help push liberty in Washington?
Well, I mean, the obvious choice is to go hit up old Rand and, kind of jump on his coattails and, kick him a little bit more towards the libertarian side.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else stand out to you?
No, not necessarily, but, I would go up there, with the idea I got 2 years to do something, okay, because this is filling a seat. Jones and Moore are going up there. All right, I won. How do I get elected in 2 years? That's their main focus at that point. I'm up there to do my job. It's being a senator is supposed to be a part-time job. I would have to keep my existing job I have now, but my job would allow me to go to Washington to vote. But if someone wants to come talk to me about the issues and whatnot, we'll have to set up meetings and stuff here because I've got to be home. But I'd be looking for anybody and everybody that I could to push our agenda of cutting our spending, getting bringing this $20 trillion worth of debt we have into back, rein it in as much as we can, and like I said, I'd be up there to do the job.
Well, it's one hell of a part-time job because the salary is pretty damn.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's part-time. Shit, part-time? Yeah, I'll take that six-figure salary for part-time work any day of the week.
Exactly.
That's what I'm striving for.
Technically, I only have to be there for the votes. So
right. Yeah.
With that type of it's the American people's money that they're giving me to be a U.S. senator. I can use that money to get a good support staff here, back in Birmingham, and to help me manage this and do the job that Alabama sent me there to do.
A good answer. I like that answer. What as far as people that are in Washington right now, I know we brought up Rand. Is there anybody else that kind of sticks out even on the congressional side of things?
No, there's probably some folks out there that never get TV time, never see anything, that are trying to do the right thing. But those are the kind of folks that I would look to work with. They don't get the publicity, but they're up there trying to do the right thing. They're not there just to enrich themselves and to further their own ego and whatnot. This is not an ego thing with me. This is I'm sick and tired of the crap that we're getting, that we're having, and instead of just complaining about it, I'm going to try and do something about it.
There is one guy on the congressional side you really need to check out. His name's Justin Amash.
Justin Amash.
And he's, I won't just say he's libertarian. He's more of a strict constitutionalist. But he does some really neat stuff. His voting record's pretty solid, and everything. And one of the things that he does that I think is really neat, and I don't know if anybody else has done it, every single vote, he posts online how he voted and why.
Yeah. Which is good. It's good to have transparency. It's good to have accountability to the people who actually put you in office. Something that you don't see nowadays really at all. And that's like, if I ever ran for office, that's kind of one of the things that I decided a long time ago, is that, I'm going to make sure that the people who put me in that office are going to know the reasons why I voted. And when it comes to Amash, he is Republican, but I agree with some of his stances more than I disagree with some of his stances. And he's very vocal. He will get online and he will get on the Twitter space and will be just like, hey, this is complete total crap.
Oh yeah.
So I'll give him credit where credit's due, no doubt about that. But
he's not a libertarian,
He's
a constitutionalist.
Yeah.
He's probably more libertarian than anybody else up there.
Well, yeah, but
That's not saying much, but
I was
you know,
gonna say it's like saying Booker is more libertarian,
for him, the rule book is the Constitution, and it's the be all end all.
right? Which is fair, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Horace, you next.
Okay, going back to the non-aggression principle.
Okay.
I understood your answer, but I mean the more common thing is that it's about the initiation of force. That the initiation of force is never rightful; it's always immoral. Are there any circumstances that you can think of where you can justify violating the non-aggression principle?
Of invading a country for our own benefit?
It's not just national. This could be personal. Initiation of force it holds as much with individuals as with nations.
The only time that I would ever use any type of force would be to defend my property or myself or my family.
Okay. Which is basically what the non-aggression principle says. That's the only just use of force.
Exactly.
Self, others, and property.
Right.
In defense.
Yep.
But the initiation is always wrong. So you agree with that totally?
Yes.
Okay.
You just made Horace's day. He's gonna go curl up in bed tonight, and he's gonna be like, I like Ron.
I'm a libertarian enigma.
I'm the hardliner, and I'm going to hit the philosophical stuff.
All right, Halston, you're up. Go.
Well, I wanted to touch before I ask this next question. I wanted to circle back with what Ron was saying about he's got, should he win, he has two years virtually to go do his job, and I don't think that enough people put clout into a statement like that. Because almost immediately, as soon as someone wins, they instantly start dumping money back into their campaign funds. They start campaigning immediately to try to get the job again, especially with representatives. Senate's not so much. You serve one term and you're hooked up. But with representatives, which is obviously not on the table right now, but I think it's really important that people start to realize that when these guys get elected, they don't just go do their jobs. They go vote a few times, they may help write a bill, and then they're campaigning. So they're basically you're voting them into office so that they can keep campaigning so that one day they can retire as a representative. I mean, that's the name of the game for a lot of these people. So I think it's really important that you said, I got 2 years to go do my job.
Mo Brooks.
Yeah. he may be in trouble this next cycle, though.
Hope so.
I hope so.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Wasted flesh.
All right, so on the topic of elections, right? This is especially here in Alabama with what's going on right now. It's no different than Hillary Trump. It's one of those really divisive elections. It's hardliner versus hardliner, even though one hardliner is not as known. But what would you suggest as a budding politician? What would you suggest to kind of ease some of these tensions that happen during election time so that we can really talk about the issues? Because one of my biggest problems about anytime you come around an election, you talk about abortions, you talk about guns, and you talk about gay rights. And although all those things are important to me, none of those affect more than a small fraction of the population. Like,
Right.
There are a lot of gun owners, but not everybody owns a gun. So none of this shit really applies to everybody. So what suggestions would you make to help ease some of those tensions?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure you could ease the tensions and stuff. You know, people have a lot of very passionate views on those three topics. I mean, if we can steer the conversation towards, you know, how much debt we're in from a national level, from a state level, you know, looking at our infrastructure, our education, you know, all the waste that we have, the corporate welfare that we do here, you know, I think that's where you could kind of get off those hot butt issues.
Yep.
Love it.
And you know, and get folks involved in looking at solving these issues.
Yeah, I think you're right too. I think I think it's really important that people in the spotlight say things like that. Because it's one thing for me. I mean, I'm a guy on a show that gets a few viewers, right? And the more we share, the more people understand our outlook on things. But I don't think enough people understand, kind of like that you're trying to go up there and do your job. I don't think enough people understand that there are other issues besides those three. And it seems to dominate because it keeps us at each other's throat. And then you can go into conspiracy theories all day long about how they already picked the outcome and all this shit. But when it comes down to it, nobody talks about real issues.
Right. And most voters are just so, disenfranchised. They hear all the blah, 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 this side, and they go, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit it out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I wish the whole abortion topic would just go away. Just in some libertarian groups. I'm like, it's like, can you guys just shut up? Because that's. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I really liked about the radio show I did with Richard Dixon, he was like, well, we'll talk about abortion. Even though the Senate can't do anything about it, why does that even matter running for the Senate?
Yeah.
I can't do squat about it once I'm in there unless there's a new Supreme Court judge that I have to confirm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that the topic comes up and people just start drawing lines in the sand. They don't even need to be there, Not just, I think it's just kind of especially in Southern culture, that's kind of just how we're raised. Is just to be at odds on this main topic.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, all right.
On a range of topics, although I have noticed over my life that the number of topics has increased, and the division over those topics has become a massive chasm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm older than both of my co-hosts here by a good margin, and
40, 50 years,
something like that.
I'm just under 13. No, sorry, just over 13 months away from 50. So.
Dude, I already hit 50.
So.
Yeah, that's old news. I'm 37. I'm having a hard time getting up in the morning. It kind of hurts a little bit. All right.
But
They have a pill for that.
That's right.
The age difference does give me a little more of a view of history, though. I've seen a little more. So. Than my co-hosts.
Yeah, you have. I've seen some. Gay rights launched out of. It's always been there for communities that were already liberal, that were already okay with it. That's just like normal. But in my lifetime, it's gone from what is that to, oh my God, they can't get married. What the fuck's going on? Mm-hmm. How do we live? What is going on? But yeah. Things change. I'm hoping that we're getting towards the end of all the ridiculous political arguments and getting to the meat and potatoes of why does my paycheck get smaller and smaller and I don't have any benefits from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we're $20 trillion in debt.
Fucking F-35 plane. Piece of shit.
That fucking plane.
Yeah, that was like Ron posted that $500,000 for seeing if selfies make you feel better or whatever.
Yes, he did. He sure did.
There was.
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he did. I know. Well, I watched him press the button. But there's all kinds of stupid ass programs that nobody knows about, like the one I always harp on, the $15 million to study male Vietnamese hookers and how whatever the fuck they do. Why would we study? Sure, you could study that, but why are we paying for it?
Have you ever seen that movie Dave?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's the guy who's he's like a comedian and a community activist who impersonates the president, but the president has a stroke, screwing his girlfriend, and they bring him in to be the replacement for him.
Oh no!
You never seen that movie?
No.
I remember.
Check it out. That's exactly what it is. What you explained there, they go into where they're trying to get something funded, and so he sits down in a cabinet meeting and goes, so why do we need to tell people they like their cars after they bought their cars? Why do we need to make them feel better about the purchase? Yeah, we can save $500,000 here. Da, 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 da. Yeah, check out that movie. Sorry.
Yeah.
I have to check it
No,
out.
yeah, that's a valid point. And in an effort to be transparent as possible, I do assist Ron on his campaign, and it has been an amazingly fun ride thus far, and it will continue to get even funner and funner as we
And
close.
your support and all the other people who volunteer for this, you guys rock. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely been fun. It's when you have a write-in campaign, it definitely has a lot of challenges. One of those being money. I mean, shit. So you got to pretty much make gold out of almost nothing. So you got to maximize the potential and be very very I guess cost effective in what you do. So it's definitely if you ever get a chance to work on a grassroots campaign, highly recommend it because it actually will challenge you, and you'll start realizing that you actually hold solutions and ideas that actually could have some good benefit. And we've seen that throughout the entire team. We've got a pretty strong group of people that are definitely pitching in on this campaign, no doubt. But going back to the questions, how would you describe the current political climate and your overall reception by those who you talk to who may not be libertarian minded?
Pretty divisive right now, and I've got some very good friends both on the right and the left, and we have our philosophical differences, but the nuts and bolts of our core issues with the debt and healthcare and everything else, we seem to kind of like all come together right in the center on that. We know that there's an issue out there, and we can't continue on the path that we're currently on, and things have got to change.
Good answer. Good answer. Good answer. Like Family Feud. Like, good answer. Good answer. No, and I think in conversation that we had talked, and you brought up the fact that you've done a lot of these little face-to-face events. You've gone to like a Monster Walk, I believe was one that you did.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just a couple of just different things where there's a table and you just kind of talk to people. And you said that overall you've gotten a pretty warm reception.
Oh yeah, I mean the Columbiana Monster Walk thing was really neat because we're standing there and you got about 2,000 people filing past you with their kids, and we're handing out candy, and I'm just meeting people, saying hi, saying, hey, my name's Ron Bishop, and I'm running for the U.S. Senate as a write-in candidate. If you don't like the two guys who are on the ballot, check me out. Here's a pamphlet, here's a pen. If you're going to vote December 12th, or you're even thinking about voting December 12th, and you don't like these, check out our campaign, check out our platform, and if this appeals to you, write me in. It's only going to change unless all of us participate. And that has been just a huge, it's almost humbling. At the other festivals I went to, I just walked out in the crowd with a handful of pamphlets and some buttons, some butts. And just talk to people, and it's amazing how they go, I just don't like what's going on. I just don't like who these people are that are that we're putting in office, and they're receptive to looking at a third party option.
And also, I just want to add, Facebook comments came out saying that you are better looking than your opponents. Just so you're aware. So you have the sex appeal working for you, and that's not something you can buy. Let me tell you. Trust me, I've tried.
Thank you.
Oh, Horace, you like that one, huh? Okay, all right, I'll take that. But Horace's significant other popped up, and she wants to know what should we be spending money on, and also how would you sell to Alabama cutting spending on a military-centric state?
Get all of our, get us out of the, I'm trying to remember the exact number, $250 million a day spending that we're doing for, being in over in the Middle East, where even the Russians got their butts kicked, just from an insurgent type war. Get us out of there, bring us home. We can still have the most advanced, technologically, philosophically, military on the planet and not be traipsing in areas that we're just not wanted.
So how would you I guess talk the state of Alabama, I guess your constituents, in understanding that, like, how would you relay that to them,
Well,
in a state that is very, I mean, especially my area. My area is I would say 85% of the economy here in some way, shape, or form comes from federal military spending.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if we focus on, systems that, allow us to defend ourselves, if you're going to lob a rocket over the Pacific at us, we're going to hit that shit before it hits even, Hawaii. It could be in, suborbital flight. We're going to take it out at that point. And if things have gotten to the point where, say, in like World War II, where you had the Germans moving through Europe, and we knew that it took Pearl Harbor to bring us into it, but eventually we realized that the world is at stake here, and we go in, do our jobs, kick their ass, and come home, and the world knows you don't mess with the USA.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of people that in the libertarian circles that have this idea that there's no such thing as foreign policy. But that's not practical in the current climate. It's just that's more idealistic. We get to a point where we're self-governing and everything's normal. We're all buying into the NAP. But the reality is that the world can be at stake. So do you just say, oh, well, we don't have any skin in the game, they're not attacking us, but they will. So that's one of those things that you have to roll the dice on as a libertarian, because you have to be in the here and now. You have to realize that there is a reality, that we're here, and not always dreaming of this bright future that we're all getting along and singing Kumbaya, because hopefully that's where we get to, but right now that's just not reality. So I think it's good that we have someone who recognizes that, rather than, oh, we're just going to pull out of everywhere and we're not going to fight anybody and we're cutting the military spending by 80% and we're just going to have farmers with pitchforks and muskets and shit, because that doesn't fly.
Yeah, no, we can have a strong military and, be a defensive and an offensive if we need to be in that state, and, and not have, our blood and treasure being spilt, in foreign countries.
Yeah, and we don't have to spend $7.5 billion on a fraud, waste, and abuse program.
Exactly.
We can do without
it. Look at SpaceX. They went in as a civilian entity to get into the space program. NASA did some awesome things. They put us into space. They put us on the moon. That was all government-backed projects. But now we're seeing that commercial can get into the space industry. Where was I going with this?
I don't know. I don't know. We're going somewhere.
Yeah, we're going somewhere with it. I apologize.
No, that's fine. Trust me, when it comes to like derailed trains of thought and rabbit holes, this corner of the market on that.
Yeah.
Check out some of the earlier shows.
We've been pigeonholed into that.
And we never even.
Yeah, the front porch territory.
Yes. And for those of y'all who are out there who don't know, this kind of spurred out of one of my front porch get-togethers. We all kind of hang out from time to time. We'll have dinner, big family dinner, and then we'll just sit on my front porch and smoke butts and just talk about politics. And this is kind of how all this formed. Is like, hey, let's do that. And
we're real party animals.
We are. Let me tell you, you want to party with philosophy and party with politics. We are the people to hang out with. If you don't,
we got a Facebook comment here. So Don Chavis, he listed basically all the major posts here, and that is a lot of jobs, Don. You're absolutely right. And yeah. I don't think. I mean, I'm not going to put words in Ron's mouth, but I think there is he recognizes. I recognize, because my family depends on it up here. We all live in Madison. Almost everybody here depends on Redstone Arsenal. every small mom and pop's business here, every real estate agent, every car dealership, especially the used BMW lot. We understand that you can't just say, you know what, all these, go back to a BRAC situation where we're just closing bases and ruining economies that are pseudo economies, because they're paying people's salaries with money they're taking from other people. So it's kind of a weird dynamic that we have there. But I think everybody on this show understands that you can't just replace that many jobs with the snap of the finger.
I'm sorry. Go
now I
ahead.
know where I was going with that.
Go.
With all the
Welcome back.
technology jobs and stuff that are in Huntsville, we want to encourage that. The military spending that we do have to defend ourselves. We can keep those facilities in Alabama, where the space race started, and keep that military contractors type stuff in here. Use those some of the resources from the federal government to fund those things to protect our country, and that would be a way we could keep Alabama engaged in a less militaristic type program.
Yeah, and that's one thing too, though, that the Huntsville area is seeing a lot of, is more and more companies are actually moving in that aren't necessarily tied directly to government spending. Polaris was a big one that came in. I'm sure they might pick up a few things here and there, but it's not like Boeing or Lockheed Martin that have massive contracts.
Cursed Gaming came into Huntsville, didn't they?
Yeah,
I believe so.
Curse has been here for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, technology, bring the technology to Alabama. We're always looked at as the hayseed of the country, but there's a lot of good technical folks here in town. I've worked for several software companies and stuff here in Alabama. We have the innovation. We have it here. We just need to promote that from a state level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
I'd put our brain power against Silicon Valley any day. Plus we have
And aren't we getting a Google mega site or something?
Yeah, I heard about the Google moving in, and we got a bid for Amazon as well. I mean, what's more corporate welfare, but
I don't think we'll get
Yeah,
it.
no.
Amazon-
The corporate welfare thing, no.
Apparently, what Amazon is looking for, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think they're actually going to move out to Athens. I think that's where
We-
Amazon's going to set up.
My understanding is they're talking a metro area of 4 million plus people.
So
their criteria was
Athens,
insane.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Capshaw.
But yes, Google is coming in. They're putting in a facility. I think it's out near Scottsboro, between Huntsville and Scottsboro.
Good.
And,
Maybe they'll put in a
Nvidia's
fucking
here.
gas station too.
And actually, one of Facebook comments, Stephen Bishop, NVIDIA.
yeah,
Nvidia, that's right. Yeah.
Red Hat has a facility here.
That's my bro.
Okay. Hey, bro.
Red Hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say that they have some they have some Army contracts as well. They're not just pushing out nice clean OS. They're
Well, the Huntsville facility specifically is embedded systems.
oh, that's cool.
So,
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I'm sure our viewers really love the tech talk.
Yeah,
and
I know I do.
fucking nerds.
As far as companies and technology, that are here and started here, and that definitely bring something to the area. If you do anything in an office environment, you're probably going to have one of two types of phones on your desk, either Cisco or Digium.
Yeah.
Yes.
Digium's based out of Huntsville, and they developed the Asterisk open source VoIP phone system. And
I interviewed for them. They didn't want me, so I'm like, whatever. I'm not plugging your shit.
Attaboy.
I like the products.
If I boycotted every business that didn't hire me, I would not be I would not be a very good consumer.
Yeah.
I'd be boycotting Chippendales. That's about it.
Yeah, right.
I've been
We
hired
have
by everybody.
NBC fans.
Jimmy's.
Jimmy's. Yeah.
Jimmy's. All right, who's up next on the question? I think it's Horace.
I don't know.
I think so.
All right, go.
Okay. This cycle, one of the things that I keep running across, and that seems to be one of the key topics as far as costing people elections or winning people elections is their views on marijuana legalization.
Mm-hmm.
So what's yours?
Well, we should decriminalize it. I mean, the Schedule 1 for no medical benefits is absolutely stupid and wrong. I mean, there's been tons of studies that come out showing, the CBTs have helped, patients that have all kinds of issues. So there is a medical use for marijuana. Outside of that, my personal experience is that, it is nowhere near as damaging or destructive as alcohol from a casual use of it. And it has been used as a tool for discrimination and ruining millions of lives for decades.
Now, you said something, and I want to clarify this. You said decriminalize rather than legalize.
Yeah, I mean, it's a plant. If I grow tomatoes in my backyard, then I should be able to grow another plant in my backyard.
Legally, there's a distinction between the two terms.
Okay.
With decriminalization, it means it's no longer a crime, but it can still be a civil penalty. You can still be fined for it. Legalized, it's legal. Taxed, whatever. So it's a distinction, but it's an important one. Huh?
I mean, did they legalize tomatoes?
They were never illegal as far as I know. Whereas marijuana is.
Okay, tomato. Let's go with that and say, yes, let's legalize it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I knew Horace was going to call you on that because it's one of those things where a lot of people think it's as a term that can just that they actually use kind of back and forth, and but there is like a legitimate difference between the two. But overall, like what you're saying is like it's a plant. We should have the government should have any say as far as what you do when it comes to growing it and doing what you want to with it because it's your body, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, they tried to criminalize alcohol at one point, and that was just not going to happen.
That worked out great.
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. And
that was amazing.
Made the fucking Constitution that much longer.
Yeah. That was 10 years worth of prohibition, somewhere around in that area.
I would say 13.
Don't hold me. 13. Okay, 13 years of prohibition. How long have we had? The quote war on drugs. Nixon.
70s.
Yeah.
Late 60s.
Yeah.
Because it was already starting.
Katie with the zinger.
The LSD.
Yeah, tomatoes are illegal in England.
Yeah, the LSD mushrooms that you could, turn over a cow patty and get, all that stuff was legal or wasn't criminalized in the 60s. And then, once the hippies all came out and started stirring up the pot, that's why, we got to ban all this.
Thanks, hippies. Fucking hippies. Get a fucking job. Fucking hippies. All right, so Don actually brought up a really good question I want to throw at you. He's like, how would Senator Bishop vote on the current administration's tax bill?
If it wasn't cutting the Department of Education, it wasn't cutting out the Department of IRS, I would, bring it back into committee if I'm allowed to do so and rework it.
Okay.
Good question.
All right.
I mean, good.
Good
Good one.
So, but just to clarify,
yeah, good all around. Good on you.
Good on you.
Good everything.
Good on you.
Good job, everyone.
But no, just to clarify, what you're saying is that if it didn't involve abolishing the IRS,
cutting spending.
Okay.
Yes, because the Department of Education, that's $50 billion a year. Is it billion?
Ish.
Ish.
Let's do it. Let's go 50 billion.
We'll do that.
Yeah, why not? That's my show. It's our show. Okay.
We'll say whatever the fuck we want.
$1 trillion.
It's one, it's not in the Constitution. Two, it's a waste of money. We can educate ourselves from a state level.
Yeah. I do understand some of the lines that are written into the Department of Education. I understand some of the things that they do, And I think that the things that are good, they do well. And the things that are terrible, they are so bad at that they make terrible look like a good word. Look at Huntsville. Huntsville City School District is just a shit show.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
Well, look
and
at
it's
this.
federally run, and that's the scary part.
Yeah, they said this is the criteria you have to teach. You no longer have shop, you no longer have mechanics, you no longer have the trade goods. Mike Rowe, if you've never checked him out, he is for the working class Americans. You have to have plumbers, you have to have electricians, you have to have people that can build a cabinet for you. They don't teach that anymore. That's where our education system has really gone downhill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For every 3 plumbers that are retiring, 1 is coming into being a plumber. And
exactly.
It sounds stupid, but that's going to end up being a shitty situation.
Yeah.
See what he did there?
Yeah.
That's going on YouTube. That's
what I teach my kids. That's what I teach my kids. My oldest 2 they're 15 and 11. They're both girls. And, they keep talking about, what are you going to do for when I go to college? I'm like, look, I'd rather you not go to college. I'd rather you get a trade first. Figure out what you want to do as far as a trade. Go get a trade, whether it's HVAC or plumbing. Like my oldest said, she loves welding. Okay, shoot, yeah, go be a welder, make $30 an hour. That's awesome. Yeah. And then when you finally decide kind of what you want to do with your life, then start going and doing the college thing. I'd rather you go that route. But that's we've seen statistics and studies coming out saying that if we don't actually kind of change our battle plan when it comes to trades, we're gonna be hard up for some actual tradesmen to do the work that nobody else wants to. Everybody wants to get an MBA, but nobody necessarily wants to be a plumber or electrician. And so that's why you have such a huge amount of people with advanced degrees who are either unemployed or underemployed, versus those who actually have a trade who can, do 18 months to 2 years and then jump into the market and be able to make a good living.
Yeah.
Without having to raise the minimum wage.
And I respect a guy who will crawl under my house,
in the
mud, and repair 15 frozen pipes that I had. Over some guy that sits in an office and decides to, a CEO position.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Anybody who's willing to dig through my shit to fix something, more power to you, sir.
Yeah. Look, I'll be the first to admit, I chose computers for a career for one very simple reason. I don't like getting fucking dirty.
Mm.
I chose computers to get chicks.
It was not cool back then
I tried to work on cars, and they caught on fire and burned to the ground, so I got into computers.
I chose to get into insurance and investments because I like pissing people off. Like cold calling. Are you happy with your current auto carrier right now? Would you like to talk about your homeowners rates? Yeah. So. For those of you, that's not how I handle insurance and investments.
No, it is not.
Yeah, Horace, we sit down. We've
yes.
chewed the fat over over financial stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, don't let this exterior fool you. I actually do have a little bit of brains. A little bit. Not a lot.
Having known Luke for a very long time now, Luke is honestly one of the smartest people I know. I mean, he will pick shit up and nothing flat.
Okay. So. There's an Amazon gift card coming your way, sir. Thank you for that.
So Ron's brother hit us with a zinger too.
Go for it.
So what would replace the Department of Education? How would the poor get education if school systems were privately funded? And to me, before I let our distinguished guest answer this, I think that kind of goes back to the utopian vision that I was talking about before. Nixing all publicly funded education is not really a reality right now, because the system that we've built, this pseudo system of fake money, doesn't really support the idea of cutting complete things out, but whittling them down so that the Department of Education isn't paying $3 billion or $2 billion or $1 million to build a new school that already has a school, but the new school they build houses less students than the school that they're currently in. They're just spending money on contractors so we can say, oh, look how many people we employed. So I think that's when I take that approach to cutting the spending of the Department of Education, it's at a practical sense. It's not really, well, fuck the poor people.
And if I go ahead.
There is another reason for them to do that, though, and it has to do with budgeting. With a budget, if you're given, say, $18 million, and you only use 12, next year you only get 12.
Right, yeah. Yep,
So
you're
you
exactly
have
right.
to use
There's no financial
every penny.
incentive to save money.
Yep.
You have to use every penny, or you will lose at the next cycle.
And I'll tag in too before our distinguished guest goes. But also we got to look at the way technology is advancing. You know, my two oldest kids are virtually they go to virtual school. You know, they have teachers who oversee their work. They're there to answer questions. But for the most part, it's independent learning. But you know, the argument for, you know, how will the poor people be able to get educated? You have actually private, free solutions. You know, you look at things like Khan Academy. If you've not seen Khan Academy, go take a look at it. It's amazing. A nonprofit organization. Google dumps money into it, and what it does is it takes, you know, educational topics from the ground level and builds on them. You know, and I'm finding that, you know, and it's free. It's 100% free. It doesn't cost you a dime. So every single person in the world who has access to a computer has access to this education. And so I see that as technology advances, the concept and the need for a brick and mortar school and, you know, these, you know, more or less glorified babysitters are going to be less and less. You know, yes, there's going to be some kinks to work out, no doubt about that. But we don't necessarily need the infrastructure at a federal level, in my opinion, when the state and the counties can actually kind of handle this shit on their own. But I'll turn it over to Ron to comment.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. You know, the technology now has gotten to the point where, you know, you could educate your children. You know, if you're being a responsible adult and you're being a responsible parent, you're going to make sure that your children, you know, have the education to make it in this world, you know, make it in their life. And the technology now exists even at a public level. You can go to your public library, and they have computers set up there that you could study for a law degree. You don't have to go to college to get a law degree. If you study all the criteria and stuff that you would need, you can go and pass the bar just by studying on your own. Lincoln did it.
Yeah, well, that does bring up a point though, because the bar association is very, in a lot of states, are very, very strict. You know, there's only like 2 states that will allow you to read for the law, Vermont being one of them. Whereas for the majority of other states, you know, they require it to be, you know, that you do have to go to some sort of brick and mortar location. I think because I've looked into law school for some reason, I don't know why. I come from a whole family of lawyers, maybe, I don't know. But California allows for you to do online law school as it stands right now. But you know, but yeah, your point exactly. You can go and do the studies that you need for a lot of things, and be able to test out and you know get the certification, get the degree, get the license that you need.
And that's another point. Go ahead, Ron.
No, I was just saying, you know, the whole concept of public education, you know, is that you give everyone the opportunity to learn. You know, you got to learn to read, you got to learn to write, you got to learn to be able to interact with, you know, be able to write a letter to someone. You know, even if it's just fill out a check or do a job application, you know, you need to have some form of education. What you do with the education at that point is up to you. You know, if you want to be a rocket scientist, you can study everything that you want to do. If you pay money to go to university to get a piece of paper that sits on the wall that says, hey, I'm a rocket scientist, groovy. But the guy sitting in his garage, you know, tinkering around with model rocket engines and stuff, and comes up with a design that is more efficient than, you know, what we have, and that can be scaled up into a full-time production type thing. That's the innovation. That's what's made this country great.
Yeah, it's not so much education as it is ambition, drive, and innovation that exactly has fueled different things. Yeah, I agree.
There's something that you love to do and do that, and that's what you can, and that's how you build your life on.
Absolutely. And another thing on this government overwatch type of thing, I don't know that it falls underneath the Department of Education specifically, but there are several things that you can go to school for, and the school signs off and puts their reputation on the line that you have finished this coursework, and then you have to go buy a license to do it. So if we're going to continue down that route, why not have that money that you're paying for a license go to fund education? Right? Why are we so reliant on a Department of Education funding a Department of Education who funds a Department of Education who funds a department who funds a school?
Exactly.
That seems like a whole lot of fat at the top, and I don't necessarily agree with it. Like law schools, one of them. Several states, I know South Carolina is one. Georgia will let you sit for the bar if you have a law degree from a non-ABA accredited school, but South Carolina will not. So
Right.
they're basically saying that this private institution somewhere else can dictate whether or not you can work, even though you've studied for it, even though you've proven you've passed the bar, you can do this. You've practiced law successfully in other states. You can't go do this.
Right.
So the regulation and stuff that goes along with what you want to do when you grow up is a little ridiculous too.
That's fair. No, and that's exactly right. When I was living in New Hampshire, I was looking at law, and you have to go to an ABA school. But then if you have a family and you're going to an ABA school, which is American Bar Association school, you can't have a full-time job. You can only work like 15 hours a week when you're enrolled, and so you have a lot of people who are going to get their law degree who have families who are on welfare, so they can pay so they can survive while they go through law school, which I find is just baffling to me. That just blows my freaking mind, like why you would have it set up that way. I understand the rules. You want them to focus on their studies, but on the flip side, it's like,
Oh, I can think of a couple of reasons.
well, yeah, I mean, I can too. I'm not retarded. I'm just saying, it's just like, this makes absolutely no sense. But definitely. There's a lot of kinks that have to be worked out, and starting with the education system definitely is one big one.
Yeah. But what the Department of Education is doing right now is they're setting a criteria to. It's almost like the Hitler youth. They're setting a criteria that you have to learn this. We have social studies now instead of civics. They don't teach, how the Constitution and how the U.S. government was defined, and this is the core beliefs of our Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, I was a finance and economics major, and no real economics classes. Nothing like legitimate economics taught in the high school realm. Of course, you may dabble in the micro or macro a little bit, but nothing when it comes to like schools of thought. Like, okay, is it an Austrian school of thought? Is it a Chicago school of thought? Or is it a Keynesian school of thought? I figured that shit out on my own. I mean,
yeah, that had went away by the time I was in high school. So, we're talking mid '80s. It was gone.
Yeah, my economics class, they handed me a checkbook with 5 checks in it and said, "You got $1,500. Pay these bills." And they're like, "Oh, well, you passed." Congratulations.
Yeah, no. And you wonder why everyone's drowning in credit card debt because they don't understand how compound interest works.
Yep.
Anyway, let me see if there's any more questions. Deborah Haynes came in and said, "Nice topics tonight." Good. I'm glad we actually have some intellectual stimulation instead of mental masturbation. I appreciate that. Which is usually par for the course for this show. It's just an hour of us just goofing with each other, but all right.
I'm out of questions.
That cleared out the questions there.
Yep.
Did you guys have anything else, or Ron? Is there any topics you wanted to address?
The biggest thing I want to get out of this campaign is to get folks out to vote. If you look at our platform and you go, these guys are freaking nuts, I'm going to vote for this dude. At least you're getting out and participating. We got too many people that are just sitting back, just they'll bitch and whine about it, but they won't do anything about it. At least get out and vote for it. And if 3 million people come out and vote for Roy Moore, at least people are getting off their ass and doing something.
That's
Fuck Roy Moore.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, but the thing is, you and I, we all know that the vast majority of the electorate here are so disenfranchised with what's going on that they're just like, there's no reason for me to take an hour out of my day and go vote.
Yeah.
And I would hope that we could resonate with the folks out there that are sick and tired of this. That's the only reason that are sick and tired of the stuff that's going on, and look at an alternative to go, these guys, they may be a little bit odd, we're on the fringe, but, they actually have some type of common sense here, and maybe this will change things.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Katie has a good question for the last question.
Well, what's that?
Jack Daniels or Maker's Mark?
Oh.
Maker's Mark all the way, baby.
All day.
Wow.
Maker's
Yeah.
7 with a
Yeah.
line.
My man.
Yes, sir.
I go cheap with Evan Williams, man. That's
Knob Creek.
I like my drunk. Paint.
I will give it credit that Green Label is wretched on its own, but it makes a pretty damn good bourbon and coke. But it is nowhere near Maker's Mark.
No,
I know. That's my
I'm a
grandma
Johnny
drank
Walker
that.
guy, but I definitely like Maker's Mark.
Oh,
Yeah,
Maker's Mark
like that.
is my brew as far as whiskeys.
Maker's Mark in 7 with a lime so
With
that
the
you
lime.
can prevent scurvy.
That's where it's at, man. That's where it's
And I believe your brother stepped in and says that Ron is not technically a Cylon, even though he might sound like it right now. Jack Daniels over Makers. Okay.
Oh, you watch your mouth, Steven. Watch your mouth. Jack Daniels can't hold a candle.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. I guess we'll go ahead and close this out. This is Ron Bishop, Libertarian write-in candidate for the U.S. Senate seat here in Alabama. I would love to have you back.
Definitely. Hey,
this has been great.
You want me on the next show? I'll be
Oh shoot, yeah! That's what I'm talking about. Adding another member to this thing. Yeah, December 12th is going to be a big day for the state of Alabama.
Yes.
A lot of stuff's riding on the line, and so if you're out there, people who are kind of on the fence or who are like, I'm voting for Doug Jones because I just don't want more. Send them over to the Facebook page, Ron Bishop for U.S. Senate. You'll see. Actually, I tagged it to one of our posts, so you can just click the link, go straight there. Ron, what's your websites?
www.writeinron.org and ronbishopforusenate.com, and at Facebook, Ron Bishop for U.S. Senate. And if you let your family know, let your friends know, let your coworkers know, have them check us out. If this is a huge election that can go on, and if we can pull off the upset of the century, Alabama elects a Libertarian to the U.S. Senate.
Yep. That'll turn some heads. Let me tell you how many heads that would turn.
That would definitely do it.
Phone calls from all over.
Even if on election night they're going, wait a minute, we're getting slow returns, from these districts and stuff because they're having to count the write-in votes.
Mm-hmm.
God,
That's nice.
that'd
Definitely.
be awesome.
Encourage people to get out and vote. Even if you don't want to vote for me, get out and vote.
My understanding, and I could be wrong, as far as write-in votes, that will not affect election night per se, because unless the number, I forget exactly how they do it, but it has to exceed the difference between the two candidates.
Exactly. If they
Before
look
they're
at
counted.
it, right. If they look at it and go, wait a minute, we've got more write-in votes than for Doug Jones, then we need to count these. So come once the election's done, we only have two options. We can kind of guesstimate, take the total number of votes that were cast, the total number of votes for Moore and Jones, and then see what the difference is right there, and that would be the write-in votes. And whether it's for Mickey Mouse, Nick Saban, or me, we will never know. Or we pay the state of Alabama to have them counted.
Yeah, and that ain't cheap.
No.
Slimy ass
It's a
people
white
in
kid's
the
job.
Yeah.
I may try and pay for it myself.
Yeah, now, like I said, let's say that we get 3% write-in votes, okay, and the difference between Moore and Jones is 2%. My understanding is that forces a count of the write-ins.
I'm not sure about that. I mean,
That's
I
my
think-
understanding.
Okay.
Is if
that would be awesome. We could do that.
otherwise, if the gap is greater than that, then yes, you do have to pay. But if it's a make or break where the write-ins could have affected it, then they have to be counted.
Yes.
So.
All right.
Interesting.
All right. Any other questions, Halston? You got anything? What's your ending F word?
Let's see. What did Katie say?
Katie's like, "Where's Whit? Whit's sick."
Fuck Roy Moore. No,
Fuck
that
Roy
was
Moore.
it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. We're gonna. I'm gonna ride that horse until his cowboy hat falls off.
Damn right. Pew pew pew, America.
I'm still looking for nudie pics of Jeff Sessions, though. If anybody's got it.
Yes, that is still a thing. Just so you guys know.
Brain bleach,
Please,
brain bleach.
If you have naked pictures of Jeff Sessions, we will. My God, I don't know what I would do. I would just love to have. I would love to have it,
but not current. I'm not advocating that you go harass Jeff Sessions. I'm talking about stuff 10 years ago. I want to see. I want to see back when that body was tight.
That body was tight. Bring out all.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Flimsy and saggy.
I'm done.
Oh.
I'm done.
This is shading into Good Morning Vietnam.
Okay. All right. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we're actually going to close this thing out. Thank you so much for wasting an hour when you could have been doing better things, like perhaps just some alone time and some pocket pool. Instead, you decided to share it with us here at Uncivil Liberty. Check out our website, uncivilliberty.com. Check out our Facebook page. You're probably already on it. If not, it's Uncivil Liberty. Or at Uncivil Liberty Show. We have it. Check out our Twitter. What's our Twitter? At Uncivil Liberty _show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, guys. That's what we got.
That doesn't sound right. I think it's just uncivil. I think it's uncivil show.
Yeah, maybe it is.
Sure, that too. That works.
We don't
Pick
know.
one. One of them is destined to be ours. And check out our podcasts. We have with the wonderful Horace is keeping those up to date for us. Again, thank you, Ron Bishop, for being on. Greatly appreciate it. It has been a blast, and we're definitely going to have you on again because this is
this is a pleasure.
All right, guys. Everybody have a good night. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being a part of this.
Later, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.